Good evening and welcome to the Monday, June 26, 2023 City of Tuscaloosa Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting. I'd like to start by introducing myself. I'm Rob Stewart. I serve as the chairman of the Zoning Board of Adjustment, and I will start with my left and have my fellow board members introduce themselves.
Mary Catherine Holt.
Michelle Coley.
Paul Rollins Jr.
Linda Ford.
Joseph Eatman.
And at this time, I'd like to introduce the City of Tuscaloosa's staff who's here this evening. Mr. Zach Pons, Director of Planning. Ms. Emily Hayes, Associate Director of Planning. Ms. Kim King, Associate City Attorney. And in the back, Mr. Kevin Jones, who is running our video and audio. The Board of Adjustment does not have the authority to enact zoning laws or special exceptions, nor does the board have authority to rule on claims of equal protection of the law or the fairness or unfairness of any zoning ordinance. By virtue of state law and city ordinances, the purpose of the ZBA is as follows: to hear appeals from decisions of the zoning officer of the city, to grant special exceptions to the zoning code in accordance with the terms as established by the City Council, and to grant variances from the terms of the zoning code when, owing to the special conditions, a literal enforcement of the code would result in unnecessary hardship. No one factor determines what is an unnecessary hardship, but all relevant factors, when taken together, must indicate that the plight of the property in question is unique and that it cannot be put reasonably to a conforming use because of the limitations imposed upon it by reason of its classification or specified zone. A working definition of unnecessary hardship is as follows: the property cannot be put to any reasonable use under its current zoning classification. It must be unique in a peculiar difficulty relating to the property of a serious and significant nature. It must relate to the property and not any personal issues. This includes economic, financial gain or loss. A variance may not be granted where the property owner merely suffers a financial loss of a kind that is common to all of the property owners in the area. Circumstances that are not hardships: self-inflicted or self-created, inconvenient, or personal. The Zoning Board of Adjustment, by virtue of state law and the City of Tuscaloosa ordinance, does not have the jurisdiction or authority to consider, interpret, and/or enforce any term or condition of subdivision covenants and/or homeowner association rules or regulations. These matters are therefore not relevant areas of inquiry by the board on any petition. Such covenants or regulations are between the private parties involved and not the ZBA. That having been said, any decision made by the ZBA on any particular case does not necessarily preclude the enforcement of such subdivision covenants and/or HOA rules or regulations by other lawful means. This is a public hearing. It is being recorded, videotaped, and is streaming live on the city's website, Facebook, as well as on local cable TV. Proper decorum, civility, and respect for others is required at all times. There are sign-up sheets outside for public comment. 4 speakers are allowed to speak in favor of a petition, and 4 speakers are allowed to speak in opposition of a petition. All speakers will have a maximum of 5 minutes unless the board votes to allow a longer time. When you are at the podium, please speak directly into the microphone and address or state your name and address, and all comments should be directed to the board. No questions or comments are to be directed to city staff or other members of the audience. I would ask the staff to confirm for the record that all the appropriate and required public and individual property owner notices for each case upon the docket of petitions now before the board have been made in accordance with the law.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. The following procedure will be followed for each petition. This hearing is an opportunity for the petitioner to present their case. for the public to inquire and make their views known about the petition, and for the board members to gather relevant facts before making its decision. City staff will introduce the petition and present facts and information to the board concerning the same. The petitioner or the petitioner's designated agent will be asked to make comments and answer questions from the board. The petitioner will have a maximum of 10 minutes unless the board votes to allow a longer time. The 4 members of the public that are in support of the petition and 4 members of the public that are in opposition to the petition who signed up to speak will then be afforded an opportunity to make inquiries and comments. At the close of public comments, the petitioner will be asked to respond to the comments if necessary. Any rebuttal will be limited to 2 minutes unless the board votes to allow a longer time. The chair may then permit the public to respond, but only to any issues raised by the petitioner in rebuttal. Any response will be limited to 2 minutes unless the board votes to allow a longer time. At the close of public comment, or once the board is satisfied that it has received all relevant information on a petition, the chairman will close further comment or discussion, and the board will then discuss the matter. The chair will read into the record the motion to approve the request along with any conditions set by the board, and the board members will commence voting. 4 votes are required to approve any petition, not a simple majority of the board. As you can see before you tonight, there are 6 of us on the board. There'll be 5 voting members, and then Mr. Eatman on my far right serves as one of our supernumeraries in the event we had a conflict of interest to get a quorum, or actually a full contingent of voting members. But again, it's 4 affirmative votes for a petition to pass. So 1 no vote, you can still pass. Anything greater or anything less than 4, the petition fails. Now, for the petitioners, leave the signs the city has placed, the metal signs, in the yard. Staff will be by as soon as possible after the conclusion of tonight's meeting to retrieve those. Any party aggrieved by any final judgment or decision of such board of zoning adjustment may within 15 days thereafter appeal therefrom to the circuit court by filing with such board a written notice of appeal specifying the judgment or decision from which the appeal is taken. The board members have had a chance to review tonight's agenda items. Do any of the members have a conflict of interest with any of the cases on tonight's agenda?
No.
The following cases on the agenda have been continued or withdrawn.
ZBA 5423 has been withdrawn, and ZBA 5623 has been continued to next month's meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes. Do you have anything?
Good afternoon. There are 2 current cases on appeal pending from the Zoning Board of Adjustments. One is the same case that we've talked about every time we've been here. Nothing has happened on that case since August. I will let you guys know if anything does. But we did have an additional appeal filed. DC Social did file an appeal from the last Zoning Board meeting. So I wanted to let you know we have that. That case is set for hearing next Wednesday on a motion to stay. And I will be in touch with the board. You don't have to do anything. I will just be in touch letting you know what is going on with it as it goes forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, good evening, board. We'll go ahead and get this meeting started. So we'll start it with our petition for a waiver from Rule 13, which bars a 6-month waiting period. Mr. Jeffrey Trimmer is requesting a waiver of Rule 13 to petition for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property located at 2407 Olympus Drive. This was previously heard and denied as ZBA 4023. If this waiver is granted, we'll put him on the next available docket, which will be the July meeting. So just a reminder of what Rule 13 is. So it is that 6-month waiting period after an adverse decision by the zoning board that essentially just saves the board's time. It keeps petitions that have been adversely decided against from just coming back over and over and over again. With these requests, they are required to hit 2 specific things. they have to prove an equitable fairness issue exists wherein a delay would adversely impact the petitioner through no fault of their own in a manner different from other petitioners, as well as make significant modifications in the design or plan that addresses the reasons for the adverse decision by the board. So per the petitioner, they have expended significant sums to acquire and approve the subject property as a game day home. They had hoped and expected to recover some of this significant investment through short-term rentals. They go on to say that this is very different from other petitioners and that they bought and improved the property with the expectation that they could recover some cost. They have invested significant sums in the property and have taken protective measures to protect the home. They hired a professional manager to oversee the short-term rental, recently installed a fence, and they did intend to originally put security cameras on the home, but due to some concern that was raised in the last ZBA meeting by the board members and neighbors, they decided not to install those. Y'all have any questions for me?
Repeat the last part. What was not installed?
Security cameras. They had originally mentioned that in the petition when it came, but there was some concern about safety, privacy, so they decided not to install those.
I want to make sure I understood. The cameras were going to be facing toward the doors, just to see how many people were coming and going, not toward the neighbors.
Right, but they just wanted to put that out there, that they haven't done that yet. They just wanted to make sure that it was known that they were listening to the concerns that were put out there.
And are they saying they added the fence since the meeting?
They did.
How tall is the fence?
So the petitioner's representative is here. I did get a picture of the fence. Do know per our regulations, it can't be any taller than 8 feet. So we'll be checking in, but I think hopefully the petitioner's representative can answer that. If not, do y'all have any additional questions for me?
No.
Thanks.
Evening, ladies and gentlemen, the board, appreciate you taking this time to hear us on this. And when the petitioner came, and I'm sorry, I didn't mention, James O'Connell, my office is 303 Hargrove Road East, attorney here in town. When the petitioner came, before he came through his short-term rental agent to present the petition to the board, and with the recommendation of that individual that he install these cameras, he put that into the petition that was previously declined. Neighbors had expressed some very strong reservations about these cameras that Ms. Ford had asked about. That these cameras were intended to face sort of into the backyard, and the concern was that the way that the property sits, these cameras could potentially look down into the neighbor's yard. And so there was some very valid concern about these cameras being installed in such a way that they would be possibly invading the privacy of the neighbors. And so that gave the board some very justified concern and pause. And so in an effort to address that concern, we removed that and told the manager that that's not going to work. That's causing too many problems for the neighborhood. We need to take other different security measures that will protect the property. Mr. Trimmer's invested a lot of money in this property and is very interested in protecting this property from any damage by any short-term renters or anybody else for that matter. He's very concerned. He uses the property himself, and his kids use it. His daughter is an alum. She was here for a long time. And so we want to make sure that the property is protected, but we want to do it in a way that does not cause great concern for the neighbors. And I think that the previous representative did not sort of recognize that was such a concern as maybe should have. But here we are with a new plan that will not have those. They will have very different security measures that will not affect anybody's privacy and will not create those problems that the neighbors, nobody would want that, right? And nobody wants a camera facing their yard. I understand that completely. So we have addressed that to make sure that does not, that concern is not there.
We did put up a fence.
And a fence has been installed as well to be sure that everything is fenced in, so to speak, right? So everything is going to be within the fence. It will be monitored. The agent will be there monitoring the activity and making sure that the short-term tenants are behaving and abiding by the law and are not causing problems, or they'll be asked to leave promptly rather
Do you have
than.
pictures of the fence?
I'm sorry.
Do you have pictures of the fence?
Do you have pictures?
We were gonna put a fence in, anyways, because,
If you don't mind, would you
Yeah, I mean,
state your name and address, please?
Jeff Trimmer, I'm the property owner. There's a fence. We were gonna put a fence in anyways, because we have 2 dogs. And when we come down, it's much easier to let them run around the yard. But as you can see, with the height of the fence, you really can't see into the backyards of anybody.
What about from that window upstairs? That was the concern that's the view do you have a view from that with the fence up?
Excuse me?
Do you have a view from the window upstairs? Because that was the concern. Because that fence does cover, like if somebody's in that backyard, you can't visibly see. But it's a 2-story house, right?
Right.
So do you have a picture showing what it looks like now from the?
No, but truthfully, can you imagine anybody really going up there and looking out the second story? I mean, people that go in and use short-term rentals in these situations usually are there for a game. They're not, they actually treat it like their own home, and they're not like spying on anybody. That's not the intent.
And the manager is going to monitor the activity in the house to make sure, and if that is a concern, we certainly will make sure that that is specifically monitored so that that does not happen. I understand the neighbor has concern. We're parents too, we understand.
But on the other hand, if I was allowed to rent this for 31 days as a long-term rental, or 61 days as a long-term rental, I could rent it to many different groups of people with no regulations, and they could still be looking out that second-story window. But I don't really think anybody is going to be out there spying on anybody.
And
Mr.
we want to make
Trimmer,
sure that doesn't happen.
did you, in the petition, was it April, the April meeting, the original petition, in what was asked as far as the number of cars, the number of adults, and the time that would be allowed, or at least requested in your petition then, which you're asking for the waiver of the rule
Right.
to be heard again less than 6 months. What has changed in that part of your petition, in your ask? Has anything changed?
No, although I think the initial petition may have had, because I wasn't aware of the regulation, I may have requested more days than you could approve, but we're fine with going down to the
So
number of days.
what was voted on, you're not asking for anything counter to that? Is
No,
that correct?
no.
Nothing counter to that, Mr. Chair, no, just we're fixing what was a very significant concern at the last meeting that was discussed quite a bit by several people.
Ms. Hayes, would you put up the Rule 13 explanation, please?
That petition had in it these cameras, and that's the big thing that has been changed. I mean, it's a major, major change that caused the concerns that were raised with respect to those cameras. That's the concern that was raised, and that's a concern we very specifically addressed.
Now, and we heard the case, we were here and voted on it. So we get that. Nothing fundamentally we heard initially has changed other than the 2 improvements clearly articulated. For the Rule 13, the reason you're here tonight is not for us to vote on anything other than saying yes or no and
Right.
vote for Rule 13. To allow you to petition in less than 6 months. The 2 highlighted in yellow or gold on the screen, those 2 tenets have to be met. So the first bullet point, how would you address that?
The first element, is that what you?
Yes,
Right.
here.
Well, sure. The first element is the equitable issue, the fairness issue that is different from other petitions. The difference here is that this is not somebody who's just taken their place and turned it into a short-term rental or offered a room for a short-term rental to try to make a little extra money. This is somebody who's made a significant investment in Tuscaloosa with the intent of trying to at least defray some of that cost, and you can't really cover the cost.
But how is that different? An example, any other petitioner who may or may not have just purchased a home has to check the boxes and do all the things that there is a cost to attempt to get the permit and then come before this body to be approved. So how are you harmed and not treated like anyone else? Because that's what we're talking about, people who are requesting a short-term rental. How is your scenario for you, Mr. Trimmer, any different? How are you harmed in meeting this by not waiting 6 months? And that's what we're meaning is you could wait 6 months and petition and come back. So where's the harm that's different from anyone else who's attempting to do that?
Well, the big difference, I would say there is that Mr. Trimmer's expended significant amounts that are not normally incurred in sort of changing something over.
Any homeowner, when you buy a home, you make improvements. I mean, that's
To live
part-
in it.
To live in, yeah. Well, living's the same thing. The use will be living. So again, back to any other short-term renter who may be, in Mr. Trimmer's case, applying for this. What harm is there that he's experienced that they aren't experiencing by waiting 6 months to come back? See, we wait 6 months. If you're denied on any petition,
Right.
a special exception, variance, short-term rental, anything that comes before this body, if it's a no vote, which it was, you can come back in 6 months and apply again. So again, I'm having a hard time seeing the 4 months that are left in that 6 months from when you were denied. Where's the harm that's unique to you that anyone else wouldn't experience?
Well, there's two things that I would say are very relevant here. One is that this is more akin to buying, say, a commercial building, saying you can't rent it for 6 months. That's a major hardship when you've made an investment like that. It is a very serious hardship when you put a very large amount of money into an investment and you can't get anything from it for a period of time. That's sort of like saying you can buy the stock, but we're not going to pay you dividends for the next 6 months. I mean, that's a big...
Well, I'll disagree there on one point.
Sure.
When Mr. Trimmer, I think you referenced when he purchased the home, he had this in mind to do. This is a city ordinance that the council passed. They could come in the next month or two and do away with it. So if you're making a financial decision, investment, and you're holding, I don't want to get in your finances, but if that's the lion's share of what you are going to either make and or help pay for that mortgage note, or whatever your objective is, you see how limited it is now. 30 nights this year, if you were approved, is all you would have. Do the math, whatever you can make is great. But outside of that, it's an ordinance that can change. So making a large investment, I would weigh that carefully. There's no guarantee.
Right, well, we can certainly debate the regulatory takings and the law of regulatory takings and go down that road and determine whether this, would qualify in your example of, the city council changing the ordinance. I would say, I think I could make a very strong argument in federal court that that's a regulatory taking.
Okay.
And I would. But that's outside the purview of this board, of course, so I don't want to waste your time. But the other thing is that these weeks are the valuable weeks that we're talking about here. And so it does make a very significant difference monetarily for the person who's
Now, on the second point,
Could I
Your
make a?
yes, sir, go ahead.
So, I mean, we bought the house. We intend to live in it also, and we intend to rent it out. Now, when we bought the house, the grass had been mowed for a number of probably months. The shrubbery was overgrown, and, you couldn't even see the porch. It was so high. There was no fence, obviously. And there's some other things in the house, but, as a homeowner, I could have said, well, I don't need to do anything with the shrubbery, and I don't really need to cut the grass, except, I come down maybe once a month or something like that. I could cut the grass, but I don't really have to do anything with the shrubbery when I had to put in a fence. But we did that hoping that we could, do some short-term rentals. And
I would hope,
and
if I lived in the neighborhood and you were an owner there or any neighborhood, I would hope you would, in the south especially, grass grows with the rain and
Right.
the sun, it grows very fast. I would hope you would mow your yard. And to your point, you mentioned earlier you have dogs and you wanted a fence anyway. Again, back to what I said originally, when you purchase a home, you have responsibilities, you have an investment greater than the purchase of the that's maintenance, a fence for your dogs or whatever. So, and same with the cameras. Those two items to me are typical of any homeowner investment. So again, I'm struggling to see why your situation is so unique as it states, and it's not fair to you because you made a decision. You still stayed there, right? You said you
Right.
come visit. So the house is used as your home when you're here.
Right.
Gotcha. Now, on the second point, the modifications you're referencing are the fence, correct?
Right.
That's one. The most significant modification, I would say, was the cameras, because that was such a sticking point for them.
Okay. But security cameras people have anyway, that was a choice.
Oh, no, I know, but it caused a lot of consternation with the speakers that were here at the last meeting, and that was what seemed to be pushing the board so hard, that this was somehow different than all the other short-term rentals that were approved.
Do you have anything else to add?
I think that pretty well covers it.
Okay. Do I have any questions from the board?
Have we in the past, I guess, granted exceptions to hearing cases prior to our, we have, okay.
Under Rule 13? Yeah, it's rare that we hear them, generally speaking. Never only one other short-term rental, I believe, and it was this last 6 months, came before us, and it was denied. So
Well, was there a significant change, and was
No.
there something that?
There was
Yeah,
not.
I would say this is a different.
it was very, I don't have the transcript in front of me.
Sure.
But both of these two bullet points, to our satisfaction, were not met.
Understand, yeah, that was, I do think it's a very different situation, just because there's so much money has been invested in something that's now useless for some 6 months. That's a long time to be, with nothing.
Well,
Mr.
I would say buyer beware. If you're putting, Trimmer, you say you stay here. Occasionally when you're here until
Yeah.
you use it. So you obviously made an investment because you come to the city.
Right.
To some extent. And again, I'm not trying to be difficult, but the 4 months that you didn't meet these two tenants to speed it up, we have a process here. The ordinance is, under ZBA rulings here, is for a 6-month wait with a no vote. I'm not seeing that you've met the two tenants for this board to say, and it would be another month from now at the earliest that you can come before us.
Understand.
So I just don't see that you've demonstrated to satisfy these to allow us to vote in favor.
I would say a month of rentals is significant.
Any other questions? Do you have anything else?
Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, this, to the audience, this is a little different than a normal petition. This was simply a request for the waiver of Rule 13. So there is no public comment here. So we will close any further public discussion and go to board comments, starting with Mrs. Ford.
My concern is we cannot take into consideration financially what has been invested into a property. I don't think that's fair to anyone. I don't see a significant change. There's not a change in the number of cars, number of people. I don't see any significant change that makes me want to approve the Rule 13.
I'm not in agreement with approving granting of Rule 13. I don't see where it's met these two bullet points.
Yeah, I think the petitioner's main points that would cover the significant modifications, to me, I don't deem them as significant only because, to the petitioner's statement, he has 2 dogs. It's a fence around the yard. It sounded as if those were your intentions to have a fence. And the other main item, which is costly, or you put it was a hardship to you in some way financially, was the security system, which again, you volunteered to do that at the last meeting, and they're very common, just like a fence. Many people have security systems. That, and then obviously the fairness, I just don't see an issue driving that you are held in a worse situation than anyone asking for the same thing. So in that case, I vote no on the waiver, or will vote no.
And for me, I appreciate you going ahead and putting the fence in, and from an eye level, from standing on the ground, it looks like it mitigates some of the problem of being able to see into your neighbor's yard. But the concern is the topography of being able to see through all of the yard. I don't think enough has been done significantly to have us reverse it. I think taking the 6 months to really look at, and as you said, you can rent it out 61 days, 91 days to renters in that way. There's a lot of nurses, traveling nurses, so there are some options. So short-term rental is not the only thing that you can do with the home. So in terms of hardship and financial hardship, I do believe you would be able to do something with it. So that's not anything significant that I think will cause us to repeal this. So I would probably not be in favor.
I agree with my other board members simply on the fact that we can't use personal investment to guide an exception. So.
Okay, if there are no other comments, I'd like to go to a reading of the petition and vote. In the case of Jeffrey Trimmer, he requests a waiver of Rule 13 to petition for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of property located at 2407 Olympus Drive, previously heard as ZBA 40-23. Voting with Mrs. Ford.
No.
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 The petition failed.
Okay, we'll move on to our cases that were continued from last month. ZBA 5023, Andrew Blake petitions for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of the property located at 67 Juanita Drive, zoned RA2, Council District 5. Here's an aerial view of that property as well as the zoning. And then a closer aerial view. View from the street. A little bit difficult to see, but there are 2 parking areas in this. Applicable regulations. This is a new short-term rental request. The house is 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, no violations or complaints. They are requesting for 3 vehicles and 6 adults, and if approved, staff recommends 3 vehicles and 6 adults. Do you have any questions for staff?
Can you go back to the picture of, yes,
Yes.
the driveway?
So essentially with this, could put 2 cars here and 1 car here.
What is that grass grown over brick? What's the surface?
It's brick pavers. It's just kind of grown through a little bit.
But it is from what?
You can see it
Office
a
of
little bit
Engi-
better here.
Okay. So the Office of Engineering's looked at it, and it is a
They have.
hard surface. Okay.
Correct.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Blake?
Good afternoon.
If you could just state your name and address,
Okay.
please.
Andrew Blake, you need my address of
Yes,
the
sir.
property or my personal address?
I'm sorry?
Is it my personal address or address of the
Yeah,
property?
that's fine. Where you reside,
Oh,
yes,
it's
sir.
2920 Woodland Road.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm requesting an exception to allow short-term rental for this property. It has enough parking, and in terms of the neighbors, I don't see where it will cause any problems if we have short-term rental being addressed there, and also to fill the void of the amount of short-term rentals available in Tuscaloosa, where people come to Tuscaloosa and stay somewhere else. I think that the money should really stay here, personally. I was contemplating selling it, but it has some it has some attachment to me because I worked on that house for years, renovating it. So I didn't want to just sell it. So I wanted to keep it for people to see it. All right.
Now, do you, you said you live elsewhere?
Yes.
Okay.
I used to live in that house.
Used to, okay.
Yeah.
Is anyone residing there in any capacity now?
No.
So it's unoccupied now?
Yes, it's vacant.
And I see you've stated it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath.
Yes.
Okay. Parking, you understand in the, what you've asked for, the city staff, the Office of Engineering has looked at it, and they've agreed that 3 cars can park there, so that ties you with what you've asked, so that
Yes.
fits with their recommendation.
Yes.
Now, have you ever engaged in the act of short-term renting?
No.
Okay. Have you, who will be responsible for anything that could happen here?
Myself will be responsible.
So or will you be residing in Tuscaloosa
Yes.
while it's being rented if it's passed?
Yeah, I'm 6 minutes away, so.
6 minutes?
Yeah.
Have you developed rules and regulations?
Not on paper, but I have certain rules. But it's not documented, but I can get it documented in a minute.
Okay, that will definitely need to be done, and you will need to post a phone number, your contact information clearly for any renters if it's passed.
Yes.
Any other questions?
I do. Mr. Blake, I drove by your property this morning, and
Okay.
it's hard to see where the driveway is. So
Oh, okay.
if this is approved, I would recommend that it would be conditional on either mowing the grass down or putting in new gravel or somehow distinguishing the driveway from the front yard.
Okay. Well, for me, it's compacted. It's 3.5-inch thick pavers. It's quite solid, but the only thing that when grass grows between it, which was a plan of mine, because I didn't want to get rid of the grass look. I wanted a firm place to park, but I wanted to see the grass through it. So
understand
it was
that,
a
and it
personal
is
choice, but
summertime,
that can be
I
addressed.
But
That can be addressed by removing the grass and putting in gravel. It can be done.
Well, Ms. Hayes, I understand what Mr. Blake said. Is that allowed, more of a decorative with the grass?
So the pavers are a pervious surface, and so in that, usually what individuals do is to try to maintain the grass there. That's why they'll put the pervious area to allow the grass to kind of grow through.
That is allowed as a park?
It is, it is allowed.
Perhaps maybe to help satisfy Ms. Ford's concerns, if you could just maybe weed eat or trim it where it's visible, but the block so they know where to park to some degree.
I think it's an aesthetic.
Right.
It's not, because I hate covering the place with concrete. I hate just concrete.
Right.
It's like a concrete jungle.
Yeah, and I'm familiar with that decorative patios, but maybe just so
I
it's
think
not
when it's kept
like
at a
foot high.
low and you can see the pavers through the grass, it looks very well. Just because it's not cut, grass grows like crazy here.
Okay.
So if I cut it, you can pass back and look, and then you can probably.
Well, you would definitely want your short-term rentalers to know where to park and not just park
Oh
all
yes,
across your
it's
front.
very visible when it's cut down. I can guarantee
It
you that.
wasn't today.
Today is a bad day to drive by. Yeah, today is a very bad day because I haven't gone to cut it in 2 weeks. We could go back maybe next week, Wednesday evening. I'm joking.
She'll go back, too.
I will go back. No, I won't. I might.
All right.
Any other questions?
I
Thank
have
you.
another request.
Yes.
I'm always asked to ask questions, right? So I've been penalized by coming here today. I missed the last meeting, so I was penalized for $400 extra because I missed the meeting. And I was asking if it could be waived, that $400, because $400 is a lot of money.
That's something with the conclusion of the meeting you need to address with our folks sitting over here, Mr. Pons or Ms. Hayes.
Only if it's possible. I'm not being.
That's
'cause-
something outside of the hearing,
Okay,
but you would
good.
need to discuss that with them. They'll go over that with you.
Yeah.
Why did you miss last meeting?
Honestly, in my mind, I was thinking it was Tuesday. And when Tuesday came around, I said, I'm running to the meeting. I said, it was yesterday. So I'm not being, my head works differently sometimes, and I do miss.
Appreciate your honesty.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else for us?
I didn't bring anything else.
Okay.
Thank
All right.
you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Okay, we don't show anyone signed up to speak either for or against. This would be the opportunity if there was anybody in the audience who would like to come forward. Okay, no takers. So we will close public comments and move to board discussion, starting with Mrs. Ford.
I think I would still like to put a condition on it that the driveway is noticeably visible so that when renters do come, it's obvious where they can park and they don't stream about the 3 cars across the front of the house for the neighbors. I think that's good. I have no problem with it. I think it's a reasonable request, 3 bedrooms, 6 people, 3 cars. I think that's reasonable. I'm in favor of it.
I have no issues with the petition as it's presented. I'm in favor.
Yeah, I think based on the petitioner's request for the 6 adults, 3 vehicles, meets with city staffs. As far as Mrs. Ford's request for a condition, and this is part of our discussion, I don't know how, other than putting signage, which is not allowed, you would be able to mark that. I mean, it's a 3-inch pavers, 3.5-inch pavers, so it's a acceptable parking along with the architectural look or the grass growing, other than possibly trimming it. I don't know that.
Oh, I just think that today it's.
Okay. That's fair. But Mr. Blake, just stay seated. I think you've heard that, so just try to keep it from getting out of hand. Yeah. Okay. I'm in favor of granting the petition.
I'm in favor of granting the petition, just on days that you rent it, cut the grass so they can see where to park. Because if you don't, they'll park on the street, and then that will be a violation. So this is also to help you. When in doubt, people just park on the street, and we can't have that.
I agree with all the comments and about the aesthetics of the driveway.
Okay. If there are no other comments, we'll move to a reading of the petition and a vote. In the matter of ZBA-50-23, Andrew Blake petitions for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property located at 67 Juanita Drive, Zone RA-2 in Council District 5, subject to the following conditions: a maximum of 6 adults, a maximum of 3 vehicles parked off-street, a maximum of 30 nights, and over a 1-year period, a probationary period. Voting with Mrs. Ford.
Yes.
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 Your petition passed.
Okay, we'll move on to our next case that was continued from last month, ZBA 5223. David Eicher petitions for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property in a historic district located at 804 Queen City Avenue, zoned R3H, Council District 4. So here's an aerial view of that property as well as the zoning. And then a closer aerial view. Some nearby short-term rentals. This is in the tourist overlay district, so there's a significant amount of short-term rentals, but this property is historic. So here's just some views of the house. Go up the drive. Applicable regulations. This is a new short-term rental request. The house is 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms, no violations or complaints. The request is for 4 vehicles and 6 to 8 adults. But if approved, staff recommends 3 vehicles and 6 adults based on parking. Do y'all have any questions for staff? We did receive 2 letters in support of this application.
Good evening, David Eicher, 2953 Northampton Drive. Yeah, so I work in real estate myself, manage my own real estate rentals. I manage a short-term rental, actually out of state in Florida, 5 hours away. So I'm familiar with the process of short-term renting, taking care of things from 5 hours away. So I'm plenty comfortable doing it from 5 minutes away. As far as any concerns you may have, is there any, I mean, it's pretty straightforward, I guess. As far as my ability to manage it properly, you know, I don't think you should have any concerns with that, since I have a rental portfolio that I manage myself currently, so.
The short-term rental you referenced that was 5 hours away. Kind of process-wise, have you, the issues you've dealt with potentially there, do you have rules and regulations? I know what they may require somewhere else could be vastly different than what the city does.
Sure, yeah, you know, just your standard, you know, trash collection, noise, you know, after hours, you know, keeping noise down, you know, just your basic, you know, common courtesy rules, you know, of any rental property, really.
And, of course, in the city of Tuscaloosa, with the STR regulations, there's no parking on street, even for legal street parking.
I'm sorry, say again?
There's no on-street parking allowed for your guest
Gotcha,
in the city of Tuscaloosa.
sure.
So all of the vehicles, if approved, would have to be off-street. They wouldn't be allowing for
Sure.
anyone else to come and park in public spaces, even though they may be legal
Yeah, and
spaces.
as you saw on the screen that she included of the back, there's enough room to have one car pull straight in and then two more cars to the side where all three cars can exit independent of each other. Nobody would have to move a car, so.
And you did state you would be the primary point of contact?
Correct.
For anything that may come up?
Correct.
Any other questions?
I have a question. Did you renovate this house at all?
It's currently being renovated.
So
yes.
it originally was 2 bedrooms.
It's a strange, obviously, house was built in the 20s, built differently. So it has 2 traditional bedrooms on the front of the house.
Right.
On the back of the house, it had 2 rooms. In today's market on campus, it would be used as a bedroom, but I added on to the back of the house. There's a current permit for that, so it's being renovated right now. But we added on a master and a master bathroom. The other one was not added on. So it's a 3-4 bedroom house.
I obviously did not go on your property, but I live in that district.
Okay.
I'm not a concern, but because I didn't see it, I'm sure that every bedroom has a window
Correct.
and a closet. We've had
They do.
issues where they haven't.
Yes, they do. That was part of the renovation, is to make it and to be honest, when I bought the property, and you know, I understand my financial gain isn't y'all's responsibility, but the intention was to do traditional rental. But the more I thought about it, this is more for my children. If and when they go to college, I'll have a place for them. So to have the least impact on the neighbors around me, and as y'all saw, I got 2 letters of, you know, supporting me. I would rather have less impact on the house, less people coming and going. If I do short-term rental, my thinking is it's going to have a better impact on the people around me. I'm not going to make my neighbors as mad if there's 30 people, you know, 30 days of rental versus 365 days, or whatever the number would be, so.
Well, as the chairman said, I think the most difficult thing you're going to have is to keep people off the street. Because Queen City, there's parking there right in front of the house.
Well, I have,
And as a
yeah.
short-term rental, you cannot park your car on the street.
Okay.
It has to be off-street.
Okay. Well, yeah, I can accommodate 3 cars, so I don't see why there would ever be 4. But that can be part of the rules for sure.
That would be,
Only no more than 3 cars allowed on property.
thank you.
And I know you mentioned you were in the process of remodeling. Once you get remodeled, if you're approved tonight, what other plans do you have for any shorter or any long-term rentals of a shorter length? Not shorter than short-term, but 30 days, 31 to 60, in that range.
That's not the plan as of right now. I mean, the plan, we all know how plans work, right? They can change, but the thinking is to keep it a short-term rental for what everybody else uses it for, game days and graduation, stuff like that.
Any other questions? Thank you.
I think.
Okay, we do not have anyone signed up to speak either for or against. If anyone is interested, you could come forward to the podium at this time. Okay, in that case, we have no one requesting to speak. We'll close public comment and move to board discussion, starting with Mrs. Ford.
I'm in favor of this short-term rental as long as it is 6 adults and 3 cars, not 8 adults and 4 cars. I know that was in the petition, so that's, I'm in favor of that. It seems to be, obviously, it's a good area to do that. As long as they adhere to the ordinance, I have no problem.
I'm in favor as well, using the staff's recommendations of 4 vehicles and 6 adults.
Yeah, I'm in favor as well of approving it. I think Mr. Eichert has demonstrated has a professional background in real estate. He's actively, so he states, actively has a rental program and I think one short-term rental he referenced specifically. I think he's capable, he's in town. Sounds like he's got a long-term plan for the property. So I'm in favor.
I'm in favor as well, 6 adults, 3 vehicles, 30 nights in 1 year.
With the presence of other short-term rentals in the area, I'm in favor as long as we limit it to 3 vehicles.
Okay. If there are no further comments, we'll move to a reading of the petition and a vote. In the matter of ZBA-52-23, David Eichert petitions for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property in a historic district located at 804 Queen City Avenue, zoned R3H in Council District 4, subject to the following conditions: a maximum of 6 adults, a maximum of 3 vehicles parked off-street, a maximum of 30 nights, and a initial 1-year probationary period. Voting with Mrs. Ford.
Yes.
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 Petition passed.
Okay, moving into our cases to be heard tonight, starting with ZBA 5323, Braybar LLC petitions for a special exception to operate a greenhouse on the property located north of 2105 26th Avenue, zoned BN, Council District 2. So here's an aerial view of that property as well as the zoning. And then a closer aerial view. It's kind of over into West Tuscaloosa. And this is a vacant lot now. The applicable regulations, this isn't specifically called out within the special exception portion of the code. So in this instance, the board should consider any accordance with the community development objectives. Petitioner is requesting a special exception to construct a greenhouse. The greenhouse will be a hydroponic lettuce growing facility operated by the United Cerebral Palsy. The lettuce will be provided to local restaurants and provide jobs and skills training for UCP clients. So here is their submitted LDP plans, land development permit plans. This kind of shows you an outline of exactly what the site is going to look like. Do y'all have any questions for staff?
Now, you may have stated it, the use of the greenhouse, that is not specified in BN or in any zoning.
So it is specified, it's just a special exception in this
In BN.
zoning.
Okay.
Correct.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Additional question?
I think we're good.
I'm Robert Martin with Duncan Coker Associates, representing Braybar LLC. So this greenhouse is going to produce hydroponic lettuce for local restaurants, but most importantly, it's going to give job opportunities for United Cerebral Palsy clients. So this is going to give opportunities for people with disabilities, and we feel like it's going to be a great asset to the community. We're grateful for the Bray family offering this piece of property for this project to be possible. We just think it's going to be a great project. Be happy to answer any specific questions that y'all have.
Are they gifting the property? to UCP, or is it a lease?
I believe it's a lease situation. The Braves are still going to own the property. It's just going to be operated by United Cerebral
So
Palsy.
just a ground lease?
That's correct.
And who will be constructing the building? Is it UCP building and owning the building, or is that the Grays?
I believe the Braves are going to construct the building, and then United Cerebral Palsy will just operate the facility.
Do you know their hours of operation?
I do not, but we do have representatives here from United Cerebral Palsy that can probably speak to that better than I can. You want to speak to that?
Hello, I'm Michael Bray. My address is 2600 Muir Woods Drive, Owens Crossroads, Alabama. We're going to own the property and the facility. This is a for-profit business that is employing about 15 UCP clients. For-profit's pretty loose.
Do you know, as far as hours of operation, what do they intend on doing, as far as the business?
Roughly 10 to 4, 10 to 5,
Like
10 a.m.
Monday through Friday?
Yes.
And then, you mentioned where they'll sell the produce, locally. Are those like contracted, or can individuals come like a retail type?
It's all
storefront?
wholesale business.
All wholesale.
For instance, Forte.
Okay. So won't be any real customer traffic other than potentially a restaurant picking
sir.
up? Okay.
It's going to be enclosed with a fence, so it's going to be contained within itself.
So it's gated?
That's right.
Okay, gotcha.
That was my question, is it gated, and are you going to do any landscaping? Is it any directional lighting on where the parking is going to be? No one will be there at night, I'm assuming.
No, it'll be locked up at night. There's no plans for lighting at the moment. We're just trying to do the minimum development just to get this thing going.
Okay.
We're approaching $400,000 as we sit, with a bush or two, and the parking that's required and needed, and the restroom, instead of trying to make the UCP clients utilize a temporary bathroom that'd be a nuisance to everybody in the community.
All kinds of lettuce, or just particular kind of
Primarily
lettuce?
romaine lettuce and basil.
Romaine?
Yes, ma'am.
Interesting. Thank you.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Yeah, all right, thank y'all.
Thank you.
We do not have anyone signed up to speak either for or against the petition. Would anyone like to come forward at this time? Okay, we'll close public comment and move to board discussion, starting with Mrs. Ford.
After looking, I did drive by the site, as you all know, I drive by almost every site, every one I can. I think this is a really good place for this, and it's the first, I've been on the board 12 years. This is the first time I've seen anything like this. So I really want to commend them for doing this. I am in favor of this project.
I'm in favor as well.
Yeah, I think, the intentions are good here. I think it'll be a good fit. I think it's going to have minimal impact on the neighboring residential across 26th. And it's kind of in a odd corner. I don't know that this property has ever been developed, or it's been vacant for quite a while. So backing up to 359, I think it's a good fit for locating it there. So I'm in favor of it.
I'm in favor as well. As offering jobs to deserving people, and I think it's going to be an improvement to the area, so I'm in favor.
I'm in favor also. I think it's a wonderful use of the property.
With no more comments, we'll move to a reading of the petition and a vote. ZBA-53-23, Braybar LLC petitions for a special exception to operate a greenhouse on the property located north of 2105 26th Avenue, Zone BN, in Council District 2, voting with Mrs. Ford.
Yes.
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 Petition passed.
Okay, moving on to our next case, ZBA 5523, Madison Clifton petitions for a special exception to operate a hair salon on the property located at 2806 7th Street, zoned BGO, Council District 1. So here's an aerial view of that property as well as the zoning. It's just south of Capitol Park. And then a closer aerial view. Couple views from the street. And right behind the property. You can see where that door is open. This is the property. Applicable regulations, with this one, there isn't any specific criteria for the special exception. Petitioner is requesting a special exception to operate a hair salon in the BGO zoning district. The hours of operation will vary between 10 a.m. and 8 p.m. And the petitioner does say with this is hitting some hours, the off hours of downtown. The salon will offer a space for self-employed stylists with approximately 6 workstations. Clients are accepted by appointment only, and those appointments will range from 30 minutes to 2 hours. Petitioner states the business will have a constant flow of coming and going with clients, and it is handicap accessible. Land development permit has been approved to construct 3 additional parking spaces in the rear. These photos were submitted by the petitioner, just showing various times during the day that are within those business hours. And this is that land development permit plan that I mentioned with those 3 parking spaces in the rear. Don't have any questions for staff?
I know we received some emails.
We did. We received 5 emails in support as well as a petition with 21 signatures in support.
So the parking pad that we could see in the picture was not on this property?
It's not. It's in the adjacent property.
Okay, so this will be constructed?
That will, correct.
Ms. Hayes, would you pull that back up, the aerial?
Mhm.
So the pad we saw was the one on the left of the box.
Correct.
Are they going to remove those old sheds in the back?
So the one shed is going to remain. This one will remain, but this will go.
Okay. And that's where the parking will be. Any other questions? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Madison Clifton. My address is 12546 Daffron Lane. I've been in the industry for 6 years, and the opportunity arose last fall for me to get started on modifying this business with Austin Markham to turn it into a hair salon. So it was residential first. It'll be its first commercial downtown in that area.
I saw earlier you had that your operating hours were from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m.?
Yes,
Okay, and your stylists are independent contractors?
they are.
So will some of them vary when they're actually working?
It's very up in the air. Sometimes it could be none, it could be 2, it could be 4. It depends each day, kind of, if they come and go.
Okay, and you mentioned it's all appointment driven, no walk-ins?
Yes, no walk-ins.
And 3 spots that are being added
Yes.
off-street in the rear?
1 is handicap with the ramp being built in the back, and then 2 is regular spaces.
Will those be for clients in the back, or?
I think I'll probably park back there because I'll probably say the latest just to lock up and go out the back. But other than that, it's probably just come and go who gets there first.
And then it's, that parking, Ms. Hayes, is not timed, is that correct, in that area?
It is not.
It's all throughout the day. So it's at various times throughout the day.
No, I'm sorry. It's not marked for time parking, like
Oh,
2-hour
no,
parking.
no,
So
it's not.
all-
Sorry
You
about
can park
that.
there all day.
Correct. It's not marked for time.
And the chairs, you asked for 6 chairs?
Yes. 6 stylists.
And does that include, are there any other?
Doesn't include me, so just
including-
5 other besides me.
And then are there any other services outside of those chairs offered?
There is, we do spray tans and stuff too, so we have a spray tan room, but that's kind of same thing, 15 minutes or less to do that service. And then We do have a suite room, but it is not as constant as like hairstyle. It's like booked out. It's kind of more specialty, so it's not as busy. But we do have a suite room. That would be 1 to 2 people come and go.
No nails.
No nails.
Any other questions? You have anything else for us?
I think that's all.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we do not have anyone signed up to speak either for or against. Now would be your last chance. Okay, no one is interested, so we will close public comment and move to board discussion, starting with Mrs. Ford.
I think that's a very appropriate place for this type of business. I had a little concern over the 6 chairs at the beginning, but after reading the letters of support and knowing that this is just a competitive world we're in, I am in favor of this business.
I'm in favor.
Yeah, I think to Mrs. Ford's comments, the outpouring of letters of support from businesses in the area of various types of businesses, a lot of professional and a competitor, we're in favor of granting that. So I think it's a healthy business climate in the area, and it's the picture that's in front of all of us now. Anecdotally, when I drive through the area for the last 15 years, even with more people coming in and establishing new businesses, there's still ample parking, street parking, which is a great thing. So I think it's a good fit, and hopefully we'll see more businesses come into the area.
I think it fits with the area. It's a good use of the property. I think it's better than having a residential house there surrounded by businesses. So I think that's a good fit, and I think you got plenty of parking, as has been said, so I'm in favor.
Yeah, I'm in favor of this. It seems like you have a lot of neighbors who are too, so that's a great thing. And so with the added parking, I am in favor of this.
Okay, if there are no other comments, we'll move to a reading of the petition and a vote. In the matter of ZBA-55-23, Madison Clifton petitions for a special exception to operate a hair salon on the property located at 2806 7th Street, Zone BGO in Council District 1. Voting with Mrs. Ford.
Yes.
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 Petition passed.
Okay, we're moving into our short-term rentals for the night. ZBA 5823, Bama B&B Kim Roberts petitions for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property in a historic district located at 1531 13th Street, zoned R3H, Council District 4. So here's an aerial view of that property as well as the zoning. And then a closer aerial view. Again, this is in that tourist overlay in a historic property. So there's significant short-term rentals. So here's just some views. This is the side street. And this is that garage open. The applicable regulations. This is a new short-term rental request. Kim Roberts will be the primary contact in case of emergency, and they will be available 24/7. Bama B&B has been in the property management business for the past 25 years. The house will be equipped with security cameras, keypad locks, signage, and guests will be required to complete paperwork. The list of rules and regulations is included in the packet online. The house is 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms and is not owner-occupied. Petitioner is requesting for 4 adults and 2 vehicles, as well as 45 nights. If approved, staff does recommend 2 vehicles and 4 adults. Do you have any questions for staff?
Can you go back to the street view of the front of the house? So that's on the corner of Shady Lane, and that front's 13th.
Correct.
So the egress to the garage is on the
Shady Lane
side. Thank you.
We had some letters in opposition.
We did. We received 5 letters in opposition and 1 letter in support. Do you have any additional questions for staff?
No, I think we're good.
Hello, I'm Kim Roberts, 46 Sherwood Drive, 35401. This property is owned by a family in Arizona, and they have a daughter that'll be attending school here, so we'll be managing the property full-time for them.
So their daughter currently resides here
Well, she will in the fall.
this fall?
Right.
So if this is approved and it's potentially football rentals, their daughter will be where when it's
She's living in a dorm.
Okay.
But the family will be using it, and then we'll rent it out when the family's not using it. They plan to come to several of the games themselves.
So, back to the request sheet. The next one. Right. So you're requesting 4 adults and 2 vehicles.
Correct. The driveway, there's not much of a driveway there, so I think Emily and them went out and measured, and there's just no way to park. I think the maximum we could do would be 2 cars in the carport garage.
That's what engineering had stated. So, we're familiar with you and your program, so, and I did read through the packet, and you had your rules stated. So, anything different about this property?
I don't think so. It'll
Will the
be
rules-
under our full management.
Will it be posted? Because I did see that they'll get the packet and it'll be online, but you do have them posted in the house as well?
Right, all of our properties have a guest binder with those rules in there. Our guests are also required to sign those rules. When they turn in a reservation, they're automatically sent those, and they have to sign those before the reservation's complete.
Okay, so they're a hard copy in the house and then online?
Correct.
Ms. Roberts, as long as I've been on the board, we've never allowed 45 nights the first year. And
Forgot to put the 30.
I just want to clarify,
30
the
is fine.
petition says 45, and
30 is fine.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, it looks like we have one individual signed up to speak in opposition, and Mr. Frank Kibbe. If you would please come forward.
My name's Frank Kibbe. I live at 1601 13th Street. I live, Shady Lane separates 1531 in our house. My lovely wife, that gray-headed lady on the 5th row back there, we've been married for 42 years, and we've lived in that house for 40 years next year. So we've seen a lot of people come and go. And I don't have anything against college students. I don't have anything against renters. But the fact is, the responsible people are the families that have lived in the historical district for years and years. Kim, I got her phone number in my phone right here. She's a very nice person. Most of the time I call her, it's after midnight, though, because she had the rental for Richard Adams next door on the other side of our house at 1607 13th Street. They brought in D.H. Griffin Wrecking Company that took down Tutwiler Hall. They had 6 trucks in the driveway sticking out on the sidewalk. Now, I'm not a rocket scientist, but that company started in 1959, and I guarantee you Mr. Griffin didn't assign one guy to one truck. I don't know how many people were living there. You can drive down 13th Street. You can tell which houses are rental and which houses are family. The rental houses have party lights. They've been out there for 2 or 3 years. Beer pong tables, banners on the second story, and cornhole boards. The family houses are neat and clean. We've had some great neighbors in the past almost 40 years. There's almost 39,000 students out there. I would hope somehow, with all the housing, thousands of apartments and rental houses, that they could stay out of the historical district. Hey, I love students. We raised 3 kids in our house. They all went to college. But, you know, the thing about it is, a kid that's 18 to 22 years old, they don't have a lot of responsibility. Now, I don't mean to say there's not thousands of great students out there, but you know what? In 40 years next year, not one of them has lived next to us, not one. We've called the police on numerous occasions to 1607 that B&B rented out, that Kim rented out. And if there's any good thing that's come out of this, we got the greatest police department in the state of Alabama. The policemen, all of them, the men and women are first class. They always helped us. I can give you some more examples, but I'm just going to give you one more. At 1531, one night, they had a party over there. 125 people estimated. 125. Call the police. Well, actually, I went over there first about 2 o'clock, and I was going to talk to the boys that were students that their father owned the house, but one of the other big boys wouldn't let me off a shady lane. So that's okay. I just called the police. They came and arrested 2 students. They wrote citations to 2 more. The other 121 students got away. They were women with shoes and dresses climbing over that fence. It was a sight to behold. But I just want to say that Lee Busby, our councilman, does a great job, and we appreciate him, and we appreciate the police. One more thing, a guy that's a lot smarter than me, and probably y'all too, Albert Einstein, he said we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. And I'm telling you folks, short-term rental is a problem in our neighborhood. And I appreciate y'all's service. I told somebody before the meeting, I said, y'all got a thankless job. But I appreciate y'all, and thank you for the time.
Thank you, sir. Okay. We don't have anyone else signed up in opposition, either for or against. If you would like to speak for or against, please come to the podium. Okay, no one else. Ms. Roberts, would you come back to the podium, please? You heard Mr. Kibbe's, and obviously y'all have spoken before. He mentioned several specific incidences and that were tied to, I think, 1607 and 1531. Can you clarify?
I was not involved in those. I'm not aware. I know there were some issues with the owner that lived full-time in that property, so I don't know if that was one of the contractors that were there were long-term tenants. They were not short-term renters, the ones that he was talking about with the trucks.
And that was Mr. Adams who owned it?
Correct. So we weren't involved with anything that had a party. We never had any reports while we were managing it for short-term rentals with parties.
Did you have, other than anything outside, I know if it's outside of what you specifically do, I'm not asking you to comment on that, but the properties that were referenced, there were 2, near Mr. Kibbe, were you managing those?
I'm not familiar with the other property. Which other one?
1607?
Is that the one that was owned by the Adams? I don't remember what their house.
Okay,
Pardon?
Richard Adams.
Yeah, that's the only one that I had that I'm aware of. But like I said, we were not involved in.
The construction company was referenced was a long-term
That was a
renter?
long-term tenant.
All right.
So I didn't have control of that.
And if you, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No,
Have you ever talked to Mr. Kibbe on the phone?
we have, yeah. And the time we talked, the owner was actually in residence, and I encouraged him to call the owner because we don't have control over an owner when they're living in their home full-time. We were just managing their reservations for a few weekends out of the year.
Any questions? Other questions? Okay, thank you. Mr. Kibbe, as I said in my opening remarks, we've got a procedure. You're more than welcome if you have anything else to say to come to the podium if you would like.
I'll just say that I don't know where you call talking or texting, but I text Kim. She's a very nice lady, and she tried to help. But you know what? At 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, we just want to sleep. You know, if it had been 11 or 12, I'd have never even texted her and called her. Those are only 2 instances. There's lots of them. There's the time that my wife went over there and picked up the girl off the yard at 15:31 that was drunk, and the girl that owned the house was kicking her, telling her to get out of her yard. And they were sorority sisters, for goodness sakes. And my wife, she helped the girl, and then the police came, and as I said, they took the girl home. Police are the greatest. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, last call on either in opposition or in favor to speak on this petition. Okay, we have no one. This time we'll close public comment and move to board discussion. And I'm going to start. I appreciate Mr. Kibbe, his remarks. 40-year resident, great neighborhood, great area. As in those 40 years, I was in college here towards the beginning of that, and the university, the city of Tuscaloosa, Tuscaloosa County, and the University of Alabama have grown exponentially, especially since I moved back 20 years ago. With Coach Saban here, the university's blown up. And obviously, when you live in close proximity, as Ms. Ford does, she can attest to, in the area near campus, that's where people want to be. Like it or not, in the fallout, it's there. And I think Mr. Kibbe addressed that. You can see usually where college kids live when you drive down 13th Street. But that's what's driven up our property values and put tax dollars in the coffers of the city and made a lot of people successful in their endeavors here. So the headaches are what we deal with. And unfortunately, you live close to a lot of it. Now, you referenced several things, Mr. Kibbe, and a lot of that is stuff that's long-term renters and what comes with college kids and some of their behavior. I don't think that's something that can really be changed. This board has, our purview does not exist over any of that. Solely on short-term rentals, and short-term rentals not as are they good or bad. The city council has passed that, and what we're tasked to do as part of that ordinance is to listen to these. Now, after the amendment in it, the new ones that come before us. All that being said, we have to look at the petition before us only. And it was referenced, that's why I asked Ms. Roberts, Ms. Roberts to come back up to rebut the comments you made. The construction company, and I've heard that story before, were long-term renters, have nothing to do with the short-term rental policy. And as some other folks have stated here earlier this evening, you can have a whole lot worse problems that aren't checked at all with long-term renters, as you well know with a lot of college kids. That's a more serious problem that doesn't have to come before anybody to check it other than having the correct licensing when they lease the house and sign a lease. So again, we're taking the ordinance and we are responsible for keeping the gate here and looking at it. So again, I appreciate your comments. In this case, with what's before us on the screen, I'm in favor of voting for a maximum of 4 adults and 2 vehicles for a total of 30 days and a 1-year probationary period. And I will move back to Ms. Ford to come down the line.
Because City Council did enact this ordinance, and we do have short-term rental, and that's not what we can change. We can only address the particular number of adults, vehicles, number of nights. I don't see any reason to not be fair, as fair to this petitioner as any other petitioner. I do applaud you for calling the police on circumstances. I know that we usually say call 311. If there is any problem, trash, cars in the street, excessive noise, late hours, please, please make a call to 311, because once it's recorded, they only get 30 nights the first year. When they come back, or if if they want to extend that short-term rental, that is highly considered how it was handled the first year, that they had the same opportunity as everyone else has in this program. Under those circumstances, I'm in favor.
I agree with my other board members, and I would like to piggyback off of a few of the things they did mention. We often have quite a few neighbors speak out against short-term rentals. It's almost like a fear of the unknown type thing at this point, but we regulate it so much that you can almost be in a worse situation by having long-term rentals in your neighborhood. With long-term rentals, we have no say-so on the number of adults, number of vehicles, whether they can park in the driveway or not. At least with short-term, we can put it in black and white. You have to cap this number of adults, these number of vehicles. You can't park on the street. And once you put that record, if there's any issues, once you call 311 or 911, like Mrs. Ford said, we have a record of it at that point. So if the individual is approved for a year, once they come back, if they have a bad record of not being in compliance, at that point in time, we can vote no, and they will not be able to do it again. But as it stands right now, I have no issues with 2 vehicles, 4 adults for 30 nights for the duration of 1 year.
I'm in agreement with my fellow board members, and I would say to the neighbor that a short-term rental sounds like it's going to be an improvement to what you've had to go through, because now it's not occupied, and then it's going to have the short-term rentals, and then the daughter will be staying in the dorm, so it's going to sit vacant most of the time, except for the 30 days that it's going to be rented out. So, you know, that's going to give you a little bit of relief, because those parties sound horrific. And those were long-term renters or owners of that property that were doing that. So you can have neighbors that are bad, and but I think short-term rental is going to not be that way, because it's, like he says, it's so regulated. And with it sitting, and the families come into town to live in it when they come to town, that kind of thing. So I'm in agreement of 4 adults, 2 vehicles, and 30 nights for a year.
I'm in agreement with Michelle's comments, and I honestly feel like as a short-term rental, you're going to have more leverage to help honor the character of the area that you live in versus it continuing to be a long-term rental. So I'm in favor of granting this with 4 adults and 2 vehicles.
If there are no other comments, we'll move towards a vote. A reading of the petition and a vote. In the matter of ZBA-58-23 Bama B&B Kim Roberts petitions for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property in a historic district located at 1531 13th Street, zoned R3H, in Council District 4, subject to the following conditions: a maximum of 4 adults, a maximum of 2 vehicles, parked off-street, a maximum of 30 nights, and a 1-year probationary period. Voting with Mrs. Ford.
Yes.
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 The petition passed.
Okay, moving on to ZBA 5923, David Wayne and Tammy Louise Donaldson petition for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property located at 2125 Antietam Avenue, zoned R1, Council District 3. So here's an aerial view of that property as well as the zoning. It's just south of Tuscaloosa Academy, north of Indian Hills Country Club. Here's an aerial view. Nearby short-term rentals. View from the street, and then a view of that driveway. Applicable regulations. This is a new short-term rental request. Tammy Donaldson will be the primary contact in case of emergency and will be available 24/7. Their primary residence is less than 2 miles from this property. Tammy was in real estate for 6 years, but this is the first time working with short-term rentals. The house has 2 active security cameras, a doorbell camera, and a driveway camera. The house is 4 bedrooms and 2.5 bathrooms and is not owner occupied. Petitioner is requesting 6 adults and 3 vehicles, and if approved, staff does recommend 3 vehicles and 6 adults. Do y'all have any questions for staff?
Emails?
We did get 2 emails in opposition of this petition. Any additional questions?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening. My name's Dave Donaldson. I'm here on behalf of both Tammy and myself. We live at 2916 Northampton Drive. This is I've owned this home for 10 years, and it is a home, and I hate to sell it. I wanted to keep it just for family coming in town, and then also originally thought this would be a good way to give back to the community in terms of travel nurse options and things like that. Had the good fortune of being in leadership Tuscaloosa this last cohort, and really once I met the CEO, I realized that the medical field needs more housing as they come in, as DCH tries to build. So that's kind of why we've kept it, and our plan moving forward would include, if approved, short-term rentals.
Now, in the petition, is it your wife who was in real estate previously?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So did she handle any rentals?
No, sir.
Just sales?
Yes, sir.
And you mentioned you have for 10 years?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you mentioned needs for medical. Are you doing any long-term rentals now?
No. We purchased a home in Northampton February 1st, and we've been working on remodeling this home. We put a new pool liner in, remodeled several of the areas within the home. So it's been empty, vacant. While we've kept up the lawn and the pool, it hasn't been occupied.
As far as, I know this is the short-term rental, I believe, will be your first attempt at this, if it's approved. What, if any, regulations have y'all prepared for your guests?
This is not all-inclusive, but I think it's important that we look at over 25 years old, no parties, events, of course, no parking on the street, we know that. No additional unauthorized guests. And then also, of course, the rules be posted within the home for the guests to see.
And you probably know this, but there are extra layers of protection for neighboring homeowners, as part of these regulations. No off-street parking is one of them, and a max on the capacity of the individuals. In this case, what you're asking for, the city's Office of Engineering is in agreement with the parking. The other thing to keep in mind is all normal legal regulations, as far as noise ordinances, et cetera, apply. So this is more stringent, but you have those plus the extra layers that your guests, if approved, have to abide by. So
Yes, sir.
You understand that?
Yes, sir.
And you mentioned Northampton, which is minutes away from this property. Are you and your wife going to be the responsible party?
Yes, sir.
So you posted phone number and contact for that?
Yes, sir.
And where will you all be if you're approved and it's rented?
We'll be residing at Northampton.
Northampton, that's correct, but I mean, you're going to be here in town as the contact?
Yes, sir.
If it's ever rented?
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Okay. Do you have anything else for us?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Ms. Hayes, Ms. Hayes, could you go back and show the short-term rental in the area? Okay, thank you.
Okay, we do not have anyone signed up to speak either for or against. Would anyone like to come forward at this time? No? Okay, then we will close public comment and move to board discussion, starting with Mrs. Ford.
This seems like a very reasonable request. I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be given the same opportunity for a short-term rental. I agree with 6 adults and 3 vehicles. It looks like there's ample room for cars, no stacking, no problems with that, and 30 nights the first year.
I agree. I'm in favor with the three vehicles, 6 adults.
Yeah, I live in close proximity to this house. I was actually notified. I'm within, 500 feet? Different neighborhood, but straight line, 500 feet. And several of the others were on the map of where the other STRs are located, are near me. I've been notified. I've had 0 problems. I've talked to some of the petitioners after the fact who now in year 3 and 4 in the area. They've had great experiences, so I don't think there's an issue of being too many or too high of a saturation rate of STRs in the area, number one. I think the petitioner's demonstrated it's his home. He's in close proximity. We'll check on it. So I'm in favor of granting the petition.
I agree with my fellow board members, 6 adults, 3 cars, 30 nights, 1 year.
Yeah, I'm in favor of this. Seems like a pretty straightforward request.
In the matter of ZBA-59-23, David Wayne and Tammy Louise Donaldson petition for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property located at 2125 Antietam Avenue, zoned R1 in Council District 3, subject to the following conditions: a maximum of 6 adults, a maximum of 3 vehicles parked off-street, a maximum of 30 nights in an initial 1-year probationary period. Voting to my left with Mrs. Holt.
Yes.
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 Petition passed.
Okay, moving on to ZBA 6023, George Jackson petitions for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property in a historic district located at 1710 8th Street, zoned R3H, Council District 4. So here's an aerial view of that property as well as the zoning, and then a closer aerial view. This may look familiar because just next door we had a short-term rental last month. So this, again, is in the tourist overlay district. This is the rear parking area. The applicable regulations. This is a new short-term rental request. However, it may look familiar because it was previously approved under a different management company. Tanner Ashcraft will be the primary contact in case of emergency and will be available 24/7. Petitioner has experience managing residential and commercial real estate, and their portfolio includes the following. The house will be equipped with smart locks, exterior security cameras on the entrances and driveway, and noise monitors. These noise monitors will monitor noise levels, humidity, crowd levels, cigarette smoke, and temperature. There is a list of rules and regulations that is included on the packet online. The house is 3 bedrooms and 3.5 bathrooms and is not owner occupied. The petitioner is requesting 6 adults and 3 vehicles, and if approved, staff recommends 3 vehicles, 6 adults. Do you have any questions for staff?
I think we're good. Thank you.
We didn't receive any public comment on this one.
I'm sorry, what was that?
We didn't receive any public
Okay.
comment.
Thank you.
Hi, George Jackson, 614 Coolidge Avenue, Atlanta, Georgia. Great to be here in Tuscaloosa. This is something we've been doing for a long time here. We're actually Ms. Roberts' first STR client. We have moved on to Tapaway with our new manager, Tanner Ashcraft. We're very excited about this new business relationship. We have plenty of secured parking out back. We always make it very clear to our short-term tenants that they are not to park and are not allowed to park on the street. We've never had any complaints. We've never had the police called. We joke that we're actually on the quieter side of the neighborhood right there with all the students living amongst the rental. We've since cleared out, I don't know if you have a more recent email, but we've since cleared out the back area to make it more conducive for those 3 cars that we're requesting. One change, just judging from your previous hearings, that I'd like you to consider would be to do 45 days rather than 30, simply because we've been doing this as long as anyone's been doing this in Tuscaloosa and have been doing it in a respectful and successful manner.
I'm just curious, how do you monitor cigarette smoke?
It's actually, yeah.
I've never heard that one before.
Yeah.
Tanner Ashcraft, 903 Heritage Drive. I'm the manager. So it's the same device that we use. They've upgraded their system, and he's got one of the newest devices, I guess, that they do. So they have a way of monitoring cigarette smoke. Is actually, I manage the one 2 doors down, and it's pretty sensitive because nobody was renting it. We didn't have any guests in the property. And I got a ding on my phone about the cigarette smoke going off. I thought, well, that's strange. Well, it turns out there was a handyman there working, but he wasn't inside. He was doing some repair on the outside of the house, smoking a cigarette in the driveway outside of the window. It was that sensitive. It triggered it.
Interesting. You're the first one that ever came up with noise monitors, as I recall.
Well,
So I'm
we try to
just
stay on top of it as much as we can. And he made a comment earlier about, and I guess I addressed it a couple months ago when I was here. I've got long-term rentals personally, and I manage short-term rental. I have short-term rentals personally as well. I know way more about what's going on with these short-term rentals than the long-terms. The long-term rentals is, unless the cops call us or a neighbor calls us directly, we have no idea what's going on. We really have a grip of what's going on with the short-terms. So.
Thank you.
Do you have the ability on the alarm to talk to them if they put it out? Can you go? I'm just curious.
Not through that device, but of course we have, their contact information. So we send them a message immediately, and there is some automation that can be involved, if not so much with the cigarette smoke, but if the noise lasts over our threshold, for 10 minutes or more, then we can notify them immediately. So.
Yeah, and we've got plenty of experience in the real estate space, enough to know that we're not going to manage this from Atlanta. And that's why, examples of the cutting edge technology that Tanner's using is a great example why we're moving our business over there. I am going to ask him to cool it on the smoke detectors when we play Tennessee, because I'm expecting a win that week. But yeah, we love Tuscaloosa. We're never going to give this house up as far as I'm concerned, simply because we love coming here. We love providing an SDR, and we pride ourselves on being a great part of the community there.
This was an STR previously?
Sorry? Yeah, yeah.
Did you own the house and it was just managed by a different company?
It was managed by Kim Roberts
Okay.
previously, and
All right.
we've exited that relationship and onto greener pastures with Tanner.
And just a comment, it is the more quiet end of 8th Street. My daughter lived back towards campus, and it was a lot rowdier. Behind Linda, actually. So.
I live in Virginia Highland right by the Beltline, and it's louder on 8th Street than it ever is by me in the city in Atlanta.
All right. Anything else for us?
No, we're just very excited and hope you'd consider doing the 45 days rather than the 30, simply because we are not new hats, so to speak.
But this is not a renewal.
No.
Even though when Kimberly had it,
It's always been in our name, but it was our understanding we needed to come out before you guys because of the change in who our contact would be moving forward.
So
clarify that.
the ZBA applications were all petitioned under Kim. So that's where it was. We've now made it a little bit more clear as we're going through, and Tanner's done a great job of doing that, allowing the owner to come represent the property, and he kind of coming in as a backup so that it's in the property owner's name.
And I understand that. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but based on everything you're saying and your representation here, we feel I can speak. I feel confident that you've got in the space. You're going to handle it right. It's your investment. We have not, on an initial application by name, and correct me again if I'm wrong, we have never granted more than 30 in year one. Is that right? And Go ahead.
That's correct. We have seen applications in which individuals are switching from a management company over to themselves or to another management company, and the board has usually, with that first application, done the 30.
And I know that's substantial in rental nights in year one, and I understand that. But we haven't done it when it's twofold. Part of it was consistency because it was easier for the staff to keep up with everything, licensing as they expired, going to 45. Now, the majority, and not everyone wants, believe it or not, don't want 45.
Sure.
And again, correct me if I'm wrong, every renewal that we have gone to 45 as a practice, if they pass muster after year one, year two went to 45, which is our cap. So I don't, again, I believe what you're saying, but we have not done that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not inclined to do that year one.
I understand. Just from my seat, I don't see it as much of a
Understand. I'd ask,
renewal,
yeah.
but I understand where you're coming from as well.
And it's like we do call it that probationary period. We put that tag on, but it is that way because it's heavily scrutinized. After that, it's still scrutinized, but the proof of concept is there. So
Good excuse to tell my wife why we need to come for more games then.
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Any other questions?
I just like the opinion that can we if we want to? If we wanted to, we could. It's within our purview.
Yes,
Okay.
so it says approvals will be granted on a probationary status for 1 year, not to exceed 30 nights in a year unless otherwise specified by the Zoning Board of Adjustment.
Okay. All right.
Anything else for us?
No?
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. We do not have anyone signed up to speak for or against. Doesn't look like we have any takers, so we're going to close public comment and move to board discussion, starting with Ms. Holt.
I have no issues with the short-term rental as long as we're being consistent with the 30 nights for the first year.
For me, I don't have a problem with doing the six adults, 3 vehicles, 30 nights in 1 year. I do see if we were going to make an exception, this would be the one we could make it on because of the previous experience and them being the owners and just switching from management. Not saying we have to, I'm just saying this would be the one and it would be the reason that we could give an exception.
Yeah, I think the property owner demonstrated he has experience, in the real estate market, and along with his local representation, he realizes that and pays that fee for that security and being able to handle it. So I do appreciate that. I would like, and you're familiar with the property, obviously, ownership. I would just like to stress, as you know, it's all off-street parking, but especially in that stretch in front of yours on 8th from Queen City down is extremely crowded. What limited parking that's staggered, so please impress upon or have Mr. Ashcraft impress upon any tenants to stay off the street. But other than that, I'm still in favor, respectfully, I'm in favor of 30 nights in the first year.
I'm in favor of the 6 adults, 3 vehicles for 30 nights for the term of 1 year.
I'm also in favor of staff recommendations.
If no other comments, we'll move to a reading of the petition and a vote in the matter of ZBA-60-23, George Jackson petitions for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property in a historic district located at 1710 8th Street, zoned R3H, Council District 4, subject to the following conditions: a maximum of 6 adults, a maximum of 3 vehicles parked off-street, a maximum of 30 nights in an initial 1-year probationary period. Voting with Mrs. Ford.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Petition passed.
Moving on to ZBA 6123, Bryant Rogers petitions for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property located at 32 Brookhaven, zoned R2, Council District 6. So here's an aerial view of that property as well as the zoning, right off Hargrove. And then a closer aerial view of that property. Nearby short-term rentals, there's just one. But we recently did get another application a few months ago. This is a view from the street. And a view of that driveway, single lane drive. Applicable regulations. It's a new short-term rental request. Tanner Ashcraft will be the primary contact in case of emergency. Again, available 24/7. Petitioner does not have any personal experience, but they are hiring a management company, or they have hired one, excuse me. The house will be equipped with smart locks, exterior security cameras on the entrances and driveways, and noise monitors. The list of rules and regulations is included in the packet online. The house is 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms and is owner occupied. The owner will stay with his parents while the house is being rented, and they'll be in Tuscaloosa. Petitioner is requesting 4 adults and 2 vehicles, and if approved, staff recommends 2 vehicles and 4 adults. Do you have any questions for staff? We received 2 letters in opposition to this petition. Anything else?
Good evening. Bryant Rogers, 32 Brookhaven Drive.
Okay, why don't you tell us a little bit about your plans on the short-term rental?
I purchased this home from a friend about 3 years ago. Shortly thereafter, I started talking with my friend Tanner, who has been managing this property sold me this property about doing some short-term rentals just for football season, possibly some graduations. I still live there and just thought it'd be a good opportunity to rent it out for the foreseeable future with these football games coming in. I thought it would be some extra pocket change. So.
And based on the staff report and your petition, Mr. Ashcraft will be the responsible party
Yes, sir.
managing the rental.
Yeah, he'll be taking care of everything for me. So.
And as it stated in the packet, you will reside elsewhere while it's being rented.
Yes, sir.
How long have you lived there?
About 3 years.
Okay, so you know your neighbors.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, 3 years, and then I used to go over and hang out with my friend who owned it previously before that. So I've known a lot of the people around me for a while.
Just curious, I know it was posted, I'm assuming the sign was posted in the yard. Of course, your neighboring property owners in the area were notified by letter. Have you heard any feedback from them?
I had one gentleman down the street come and talk to me, and he was all for it, and said, I think he was 2 houses down. So other than that, no. Most of the people that are around me are actually long-term renters. Was kind of surprised by the map to not see more.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. We do not have anyone signed up to speak either for or against. Last call. No takers, so we will close public comment and move to board discussion, starting with Ms. Holt.
I have no issues with this request. It seems like a straightforward request, and I'm glad that you are using a management company. I always like to see that when people haven't rented before.
I agree with Ms. Holt for 4 adults, 2 vehicles, 30 nights, 1 year.
Yeah, I agree with my fellow board members. I think Mr. Ashcraft, based on the previous cases in detail, described how he would handle issues there, which I think is good. And I'm in favor of the petition.
I agree. I'm in favor as well.
I'm also in favor. It seems a reasonable request.
Okay, if there are no other comments, we'll move to a reading of the petition and a vote. In the matter of ZBA-61-23, Bryant Rogers petitions for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property located at 32 Brookhaven, zoned R2 in Council District 6, subject to the following conditions: a maximum of 4 adults, a maximum of 2 vehicles parked off-street, a maximum of 30 nights in a 1-year probationary period. Voting with Ms. Holt.
Yes.
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 The petition passed.
Okay, moving on to our last case of the night, ZBA 6223, Chris and Olivia Pantzer petition for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property located at 13166 Bonehenge Drive, zoned R1, Council District 3. So here's an aerial view of that property as well as the zoning. It's right on the lake. And then a closer aerial view. It's a pretty large lot on the lake. Kind of tucks back in there. You can see right here. That's where the house is. So here is a view of that drive in the front of the house, and then a nice aerial drone shot of the house. Applicable regulations. This is a new short-term rental request. Tanner Ashcraft will be the primary contact, and again, he's available 24/7. Petitioner has experience renting out past apartments for short-term rentals while she traveled for work and never experienced any issues with those. The house will shockingly be equipped with smart locks, exterior security cameras on the entrance and driveway, and noise monitors. The list of rules and regulations is included in the packet online. The house is 5 bedrooms and 3.5 bathrooms and is not owner-occupied. While the property is not being rented, the owners do plan to enjoy it as a second home to visit family. The petitioner is requesting 10 adults and 5 vehicles, and if approved, staff does recommend 5 vehicles and 10 adults. Do you have any questions for staff?
Did you show the acreage?
So it's, I'll let the petitioner touch on that. I believe it's around 8-ish acres, but I don't want to get that incorrect.
And can you go back to the aerial site map?
It's a large lot. That's not. Gotcha.
Where it says Wishbone?
So you can kind of see this little line right here.
Yeah.
That's where it is.
And it's one parcel or two?
No, sir, it is, I believe, two actual parcels that we bought together.
Okay.
And there's a little sliver across the slough that we own as well.
Okay.
Sorry about that. So we did receive 2 letters in opposition and 1 in support.
Any other questions? Ms. Hayes? Thank you.
Thanks.
Hello there, I'm Olivia Pansner. Nice to be here with you all. My primary address is 9 Gramercy Park in New York, so it's really nice to be home here talking with y'all. I'm here with my mom, Babs Hart, and Tanner Ashcraft, who will be our property manager and available 24/7. Again, we just recently bought this as a second home. It's my husband's dream house. We fell in love with it. I grew up going to this home, and so it's a really special place to us. And we bought it from some dear friends who live next door. So we didn't actually come with the intention of actually renting it out as a short-term rental, but noticed it was a great opportunity to do so. What else? Oh, yes, I have a little bit of short-term rental experience. I used to rent out my apartment all the time. I traveled extensively for 5 or 6 years internationally and always tried to rent out my apartment when it was appropriate. The security measures, I think she mentioned most of them, although we're definitely getting that cigarette smoke thing. And one other thing that we've talked about, and I believe this device has, is a way to also count devices that are on the property. So not only noise, but also you guys probably all know about this, it was new to me, but how many devices somebody might have and keeping that within a regular range. I proactively sent out a letter to all of our neighbors, letting them know, making them aware of our standards for, 25 and up. We have the cameras, smart locks, noise monitors, all the right things in place, as far as I understand right now. And I guess we'll sign a form. Also gave them my cell phone number just in case they needed it. Any questions I may answer?
So I know this is the second home.
Yes, sir.
And obviously, Mr. Ashcraft is representing you
Yes,
from
sir.
the management locally. Did you state, I may have missed it, when it's being rented, y'all will be wherever, here or New York?
My brother's house, my parents' house, in our home in New York. We visit as often as we can. So And on that note, my parents live 10 minutes away, my brother lives 3 minutes away, so we have a lot of help close by, thankfully. And they're all using the house while we were gone, which is a lot of fun.
I have a question for city staff. How often have we had 10?
So we've approved 10-5 a few different times. Anything above that is very rare, but 10-5 has been approved.
And most of those were on the lake, if I recall.
Correct.
Thank
And-
you.
And I don't think any of those had near the acreage that this does, so. All right. Anything else for us?
I don't think so.
Any other questions?
I had a question, actually, and Tanner may have actually told me. The 30 days, I don't know if we'll actually even use all of that, but is that just like a calendar year or, okay,
30 total nights to rent it
in a calendar year?
within that calendar year if it's approved from tonight.
If it's, if approval granted.
And then,
Yeah.
of course, you would have to come back a year, 12 months from now if you chose to stay in the STR.
Yes, sir, I understand.
And then at that point, you can petition for 45.
Okay. I don't think we'll be using it all of that, but it's good to know.
And we've had people ask for less, like 15 nights, but for simplicity and consistency, we've stayed at 30. If you use them or not, that's
Okay.
to your discretion.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's it.
No one signed up to speak either for or against, so we will close public comment and move to board discussion, starting with Ms. Holt.
I have no concerns with this STR.
Normally 10-5 would scare me. I think that's a party. But because of the location, the size of the home, ZBA is thinking about having one out there. No.
Yeah, we're welcome.
A retreat. We're going to have a retreat here. No. So I don't see any problem with it. I'm in favor of 10 nights, 5 vehicles, 10 adults, 5 vehicles, 30 nights in 1 year.
Yeah, I agree with my fellow board members. Everything's unique. Every property we look at the terrain, the size of the lot, all those factors. Obviously, there's no concern with this size property and the location of the house. It's very secluded. It lends well on every reason to allow this many people. So I'm in favor of that.
I agree, I'm in favor as well.
I was the first one that said 10 people, 5 cars, it's a party house, and that was 3 years ago. But I think under the circumstances, considering where the house is, the property that it's on, and the way the driveway is configured, I have absolutely no problem with approving this.
Okay, if there are no more comments, we'll move to a reading of the petition and a vote. In the matter of ZBA-62-23, Chris and Olivia Padenser. Close. Petition for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property located at 13166 Bonehenge Drive, zoned R1 in Council District 3, subject to the following conditions: a total of 10 adults, a total of 5 vehicles parked off-street, a total of 30 nights in a 1-year probationary period. Voting with Ms. Holt.
Yes.
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 Petition passed.
Ms. Cullen, we would love to host your party. You just have to do a carpool.
Hey, if you can get them to pay for it.
We love it.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Meeting's adjourned.
Oh.